By now, at least everybody has some basic understanding of AI, right? It's like, if nothing, at least we know ChatGPT and Perplexity. So that's good. So I will go one step beyond that and talk about a little more. Okay. How many of you recognize all of this? This is the reality as it exists today, right? If anybody's been to Austin or San Francisco in the last several months or a year, you'll see Waymos on the road, right? It is freaky because now you sit in the car and there's no driver, and it's actually going around in San Francisco downtown with all the people here. Of course, I'm not saying it'll work in India with all our potholes, but it's not too far, right? So Waymo is happening. So is Perplexity. I mean, you guys know what Perplexity is, right? Everybody knows ChatGPT. Why I'm calling out Perplexity and potentially DeepSeek is because for the first time, there are models which can even expose what we call a COT, which is chain of thought. That means earlier it was a black box. Now you get to see what the engine is thinking in its own way, right? So that's Perplexity, chain of thought. You're able to see that. Everybody recognizes that fellow there, Optimus. That's the Tesla's robo that just got introduced a few months back, right? Just to remind all of you, there was a similar event like this to launch that robo, and the bar was managed by this robo. It made drinks for you, it served drinks for you, it did everything, right? So that's another thing that you're seeing. The next wave that I see is a lot of specialized robots. So for example, you have this massive building, you want to paint this building today, it takes 6 months to do that with scaffolding and all of that. So imagine a very precise robot which is being able to paint all this. So it could be as simple as that, or something more complex like what you see on the top right corner, which is robotics intervening into your human body, right? So let's play this a little bit about how things have transitioned in the last 10 years. You had a problem with your abdomen. The way we would do surgery is what? We would open it up, somebody puts their hand in, goes and fixes your abdomen, comes back. The next step is what? Oh my God, that's such a massive cut. It takes 1 month to recover. So you do liposuction, right? You make holes, you go in, you operate, you come back. Now, that has limitations of how precise you can be. So the next phase of that, now you see, is robotics, right? Which is liposuction. A robo can go in, do very, very precise job and come out, right? What does that mean for a human? What would take a month for me to recover? I can go to the hospital in the morning, get my problem diagnosed very accurately, get it fixed and come back home, probably by end of day, right? So you see all of this happening, right? But life isn't just fun if it stops here, right? You guys remember who this gentleman is? Does everybody remember the movie? Which movie is this? Terminator, right? Where that fellow has infinite powers, right? They've given us all of these fancy things about how he will go save the world and all of that, right? So how far are we from that? That's the question. But I also want to give you the counterfact. Do you guys remember? Does this resonate with you? We're talking about a robot who's going to save us from the aliens, but we still don't get a weather forecast right. Right? Today morning, it says Bangalore is going to be bright, sunny, wear your shorts, go out, and it starts raining. So we still can't seem to get those basics right. Why do you think so, right? Today, if you really have to predict weather, micro and macro, there's so many parameters, it's almost, with the existing compute we have, not enough to process all the parameters and accurately predict the weather. Right? So I'm just trying to give you two aspects of the world about how there's a Terminator which was shown to you a decade back, but where we are today is we're still struggling to forecast weather, right? With all the intelligence, all the ChatGPT and everything else we're talking about, right? Then you look at, okay, what does this mean for a country like India? Right? And I think for me, what I loved about this discussion also is the fellow panelists I have today, which is so amazing. I always get to be part of discussions where we're talking about AI, but it was nice to know that now we've started to think about human ahead of time, because that's what is keeping us busy back at work too. So let's look at some of the core problems in India, right? We still have only 0.9 doctors for every 1,000 people, right? By the way, the WHO guidance is 1 for 1,000, so we're below that, right? Compare that to UK, which is 3.4, right? Now, that gets aggravated if you go to rural India, because this is the average. So in rural India, your access to a doctor, let alone a specialized doctor, is even more lesser, right? Then you look at something like a legal world, right? Lot of pendency of cases. Over 5 crore cases are still pending in our courts. 62 lakh cases are pending in High Court and above. Okay, this is real problem. In a society, if you cannot quickly arbitrate and deliver justice, what do you expect would happen to a society like that? So these are real problems that exist today. And I know this is very close to your heart because a lot of you guys are into teaching. In India alone, we have 1.5 million shortage in teachers. Okay? I'm not even talking about expert specialized teachers. This is basic primary, secondary school teaching, right? So I'm coming back to 3 things. We spoke about Terminator, then we spoke about we still can't get the forecast right. And that's just a proxy for all the other things we're not able to get right. And there is a massive gap in terms of how humans are living their life today, right? In fact, I commonly tell people on my team when we think AI has got everything, I'm like, the world produces more food than required by all the 7-8 billion people in the world, but why are people still sleeping hungry? And that's where I'm so privileged to share the dice with somebody from ISKCON, because I know one's great effort is Akshay Patra to feed people, right? So there is still complexities in how we understand our supply chain, how we really manage food, all of these issues, right? What I thought I will do is take from here and essentially tell you guys about the debate that I see in the world. It's about, is AI and humans competing, or is AI and human really friends? Because what's happened is, if you really look at ChatGPTs of the world, which is probably your exposure to a great extent, it appears that most of the things you could do or you could get a job for, this thing is able to do it far better than you. So then is it competing with you? That's a question, right? Or is it really your friend? And what does it mean for it to be your friend? Because you can't be what you were in the last 10 years. You've got to be something different. So what I thought I will do is share a few perspectives on the next level of double click on what you guys are talking about. What is, I want to expose to you what is the limitations of AI in the construct of each of these human thinking systems. Okay? Where is AI and where do I see the limitations? But when I say this, I'll also have to tell you, AI in the last few years is growing at a speed that's unbelievable. So I'll give you an example. Willow is the chip that Google just launched, right? It's the first quantum compute chip. For everybody else to understand, the bit that you understand has got 2 states, right? Plus, minus. So any math I do is 2 power something. In a qubit, it can take n number of states. So the level of compute I can do is exponentially higher. Just to give you an example, the math problem that Willow solved, in today's supercomputer, it takes 10 times ziptillion years. So ziptillion is 10 to the power of 25 years. Digest that for a minute. Willow solved that problem in 5 minutes. Okay? What you're seeing ChatGPT and everything else today is still with limited 30,000, 40,000 GPUs. Colossus from Grok solved it for 100,000 GPUs. But we're talking about an exponentially higher level of compute that is beyond human imagination. Right? And that's happening. So we're talking about maybe another 8 to 15 years for quantum computers to probably become more mainstream. There's a lot of problems to solve, but think about a massive server farm that exists today in 2 acres will become the size of your refrigerator once you get quantum computers, right? So what that means is there are a lot of things that you think is in the realm of a human today. AI will be able to do that better than you think. So then what is being human then? Right? 10, 15 years from now. So we'll explore a few ideas and I'll give you some. So one is this ability to generalize, right? See, humans have this unique thing to generalize everything. For example, to a child, I can teach the child how to count oranges, and I don't have to teach the child again how to count apples or how to count the number of people in the room, right? Humans are able to quickly generalize. Now, what you take it for granted as a human, the machine is ridiculously dumb. It doesn't know what to generalize. If I tell the machine, hey, next time you get oranges, any fruit you count the same way. If I give him lemons, it's thinking is lemon a fruit or a vegetable? And should I count the same way? I teach her saying, no, vegetable also count the same way. I throw something else, it has to be retrained again and again and again. Right? So humans have this power of generalization. Again, I'm not going into how humans have developed. That's not my area of research at all. But humans have this innate ability to generalize very, very complex ideas, right? And sometimes we don't even consciously know how we are able to generalize. But that becomes an opportunity for humans to beat AI, right? The second one is what we call as creativity, imagination, which you guys have spoken in length about, right? But I'll give you a sense of what do I mean when I say creativity. A lot of people think creativity is design, and then they're like, "Oh my God, Mid-Journey is already designing all the ads better than human beings do, right? It's making movies, it's making stories. So then, what does creativity really mean in that context?" Or what does imagination really mean, right? It's your ability to think beyond patterns. That's the way you can decipher it. If anything is within the realm of a pattern that the human has done before, the machine will beat the crap out of all of us, right? But the beauty of a human being is we could connect a cricket match and a movie and make a Lagan. And AI cannot do that, right? The next time you try to connect football and a movie, Mid-Journey will beat you, because it is figured out that a sport and a movie can be combined together. Now you have to think something totally different, right? Now, what does this mean to all of us as students? We've gotten away in the last maybe few decades, including my generation, by just extrapolating knowledge without having to spend a lot of time to deeply think about all of the gaps that exist. We'll be forced to do, right? You can't get away in next 5 years and get a great job by just extrapolating what you've learned. Right? So again, just a shout out to all the teachers, because I know you guys struggle. Next time you get a case study in your class, if you're going to produce something that somebody's already thought of, because it's very easy, you can go to ChatGPT, it will look at all the commentary on that white paper and give you. But if you can come up with even one statement which is your original critique, right? Then you have some hope to beat the AI. So don't try to run the race against AI where it is definitely going to beat you, which is replicating existing information, right? The next one is, of course, emotional intelligence, which I won't go too much. I think there are experts here who will talk about it. But in a simple way, AI can potentially augment diagnosis when you go to a doctor, right? Like, for example, I can read an X-ray much more accurately than a human being can, right? But a human has some intrinsic thing, right? As they're reading the X-ray and as they're talking to you, they also know what you're feeling. They also know you're fidgeting. They also know how to apply fidgeting to the diagnosis of an X-ray, which is very difficult for AI to do. So think about any applications where you have to constantly change what you do or how you react based on an emotional response from a human being, right? That will be very hard for AI to beat. Robotics is okay for surgery because the person is sleeping. He's probably on anesthesia, right? You still have to monitor all the vitals, but that can also be automated. But the emotional response, if you want to respond, that becomes another huge area of opportunity for humans, right? AI cannot really think about what the hell it's doing. It only at best, and it's taken years to do a chain of thought, it can only show what the algorithms are processing, right? But it has no consciousness of its own. And as long as you're able to come up with areas where your conscious decisions will have an impact on how you're interacting, it's very, very hard for AI to beat that. I would almost say impossible, but the problem is in the last 10 years, I've realized I have to be very careful of using the word impossible, because what I thought impossible 10 years back is mainstream today. Right? So I won't use the word impossible, but very, very difficult, right? So we looked at 5 attributes. I'll probably spend another 5 attributes, and I promise this is all the 10 I have for today. This is by no means a complete list. It's my early thought process of where I see more to be discovered, but uncertainty, right? So think about a pilot flying a plane, right? Everybody knows autopilot, right? Everybody knows when you're flying to US today, apparently there are parts of your journey where the pilot is sleeping. It freaks us all out. Now, let's think about it, right? We are saying an AI is much more predictable. It makes decisions exactly the same way, no matter how many times you make the person do it. Whereas a human doesn't do it. But still, we all freak out when we are flying if we know that it's an autopilot and not a human being flying, right? Why is that? Because there is this problem of uncertainty that you may face while you're flying. And a human can decipher what's the best mode of response in an uncertain environment, which is not pre-coded. Machine stops. If it's not in its repository of knowledge, it cannot respond. The word that you tend to use in the world of AI is hallucination. What is hallucination? It's making up stories, right? If you ask a question, so I'll give you a good example. If you ask, now they fixed it, but if you had asked a few years back to ChatGPT, hey, tell me how do I change the password for my Apple ID account on my Samsung Galaxy 95? It'll give you an answer. Whereas in reality, that's not possible, right? So the thing with AI is it hallucinates, which means it makes up an answer when it doesn't have one, right? You wouldn't want AI to make up an answer when you're on 35,000 feet above the earth, right? So there are areas like that where uncertainty is very high, where I think AI would take a while for it to figure out how humans think. I almost think it's a very complex problem for AI to solve, right? This is again metacognition, and I'll give you an example of what this means for students here, right? Most of us don't study throughout the year, right? I mean, I'm not talking about those few really good, really nice kids. Most of us study at 2 days before the exams. And we all have a pattern of what works for us. Somebody will tell you, only if I study from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., it goes into my head. Somebody will tell you, only if I study with these two friends, I understand better than if I study alone, right? That's because as humans, we've also figured out, how do I think about thinking? When does my thinking enhance more, right? Again, I'm giving a very simple example, but a machine cannot do that. A machine cannot understand or think about its thinking, right? So wherever you can apply that concept, that's another area that machine will find it hard to compete with, right? Abstract thinking, I think this is another one. So I'll give you some examples just to make sure what abstract thinking is. Everybody knows infinity in mathematics, right? Can you imagine seeing infinity? And can you imagine machine seeing infinity? Theory of relativity, right? I mean, if you guys know how theory of relativity was first thought of, Einstein actually thought of what? Riding light. He was imagining what does it feel to ride a light. And he wanted to ride the light and look across to see if he can see waves in the light. That's how he came up with the concept of theory of relativity, right? Ability to abstractly think is a very, very powerful human skill or inherently a human characteristics. We at best can do randomization with AI and algorithms, but it is literally nobody even has a clue of how to even think about how to make machines think abstract, right? And abstract ideas are what makes world the way it is. It's really beautiful, right? When an abstract idea comes in front of you, you're like, how the hell does this even happen? Like, I couldn't even think of it, right? And there are tons and tons of examples of abstract ideas. I'm also trying to give just 1-2 examples, because one of the things I want to do is very thoughtfully going forward is stop giving you guys guides of all the examples that we know of. You have to think. I think the biggest opportunity for us in any B school or any engineering school is to stop rote learning and just spend lion's share of your time thinking about things that others haven't thought through, right? So it's very important that the next time you meet as friends to have some coffee, you're able to come up with your understanding of what an abstract idea is. Then there is something called intrinsic motivation and curiosity, right? Look at how many of you are sitting here trying to understand supposedly something to do with human value. It's probably not even in your syllabus, right? Every time a student asks you a question out of syllabus, okay, there is an intrinsic motivation to learn that is driving that student. Now, guess what AI does? It only works within the realm of an objective of the algorithm. It cannot think beyond that at all. It cannot ask a single question outside syllabus. Okay. So again, for all the teachers who face this out of syllabus questions in your classroom, that's something to be highly encouraged, because that is actually a signal for a human going and trying to learn things which is not part of the objective of that course or that moment of their life, right? So that's another thing that AI struggles with. So that's an ethical dilemma. So the other ethical dilemma we're talking about is we run through the dilemma every day, right? I have resources. I have two choices. I can use all these resources to make humanity better today, or leave some resources for the future generations which I have not even seen. How do you make a choice? Now guess AI making that choice, right? These are absolute areas where I think we will be teachers to AI. In fact, every student here will become a teacher to AI, because humans have this inherent way to evolve based on values. they have a way to articulate how to resolve ethical dilemmas, right? Which an AI does not have. And increasingly, this will become a huge area, where AI will start to falter. I mean, in every single space, as I told you, could be a simple Waymo car. You have somebody in the Waymo car who, if they don't reach the hospital, right, in 10 minutes, the probability of death is very high. But let's say the speed limit, which is breaking of the law, does not permit you to reach in 10 minutes, right? Plus, the risk of you driving that fast on other people's life is, let's say, X probability, right? And I'm carefully using the word probability because for AI, it's all about probabilities, nothing else, right? Now, as a human, you don't even need to be educated, right? An average driver can make those choices. But for an AI to make those choices are very, very difficult. The AI doesn't know when to break the law to save a life, when to let the life die to stick to law. It doesn't understand all of these things, right? So that's the opportunity for you guys to spend a lot of time to understand what does ethics mean? How do we teach AI, for ethical behavior? It'll never be absolute. It's always evolving, but that's pretty much what it is. For AI, it's not properly showing up here, but I hope you get the essence of what I'm trying to say. For AI, everything is black and white. The algorithm knows A is A, B is B, right? Then you say, what happens to shades of gray? And we're also in India, right? So, Purana Mano Holi hai. That's what they say, right? So, in our world, it's just not black, white, and gray. We have lots of colors. How do you make AI process all of these variations, right? I think that's the complex problem for AI, which in foreseeable future, we find it extremely hard to solve. But that is the opportunity for us human to double down on, is to find those problem statements where colors make a difference, where grays make a difference, where shades of gray make a difference. And that's how you will build your next set of jobs. Anything that's black and white decision making, those jobs are gone. I mean, if they're not gone today, they'll be gone in the next 1-2 years, right? Millions of them, right? So I just wanted to end it with this one statement, I think the greatest human quest is to know what one must do in order to become a human being. Again, I'm not saying this is the only greatest quest. Of course, there are bigger quests on who the hell am I? Why am I here? Why am I not anywhere else? Right? These are all very profound questions. But I just wanted to leave you guys with a thought that if you really want to make AI your friend, what AI can do is it can do all your boring jobs. So that you get time free, not to be on Instagram, but to deeply invest on some of these questions that has been perennial with human beings, right? So that we all as humanity can move one step closer to what our dreams are, right? I think that's the way I see it at workplace is a lot of tactical transactional work that we were doing in the past. Even for cooler jobs like software development, a majority of the work that you write, the code that you write is really not complex work. If AI can do that, then maybe we get an opportunity to apply our head to solve more complex problems. Need not be for technology, but even for human race, right? And we have plenty of them. And I always keep saying that humans are very creative in solving problems, but we are more creative in creating problems. So as long as human creativity exists, we will create enough and more problems that we need humans to go solve for. Listening to my fellow panelists. Thank you.